Okay, this goes to a paper here that was presented by Yale, some people at Yale, Lydia Tarrant, who I'm sure did a fabulous job on her work, and some other people. And the person I, though, have a dispute with is Derek Briggs. Now, I presented my mud fossil research to him years ago, and he totally ignored it until I finally, well, I totally ignored it. Anyway, you'll see all the emails. Now, exceptionally preserved soft body tissues. I mean, he now all of a sudden he's had a conversion. Now, I just had an email with him not long ago, a few months back in December of 2015. It's 2016 now, towards what, September, October. It's October 26th. And Derek Briggs is now claiming that he's discovered soft tissue body, and he's naming it some name metacardia or something. Now, here's the from 12:15. Dear Mr. Spur, thank you for your email today and attached materials. My apologies, some of your emails have gone unanswered. He's never answered any of them. He hung up on me on the phone. He's extremely arrogant and doesn't have anything, any scientific interest in this whatsoever that I can determine. And, you know, but he says, oh, you've received from my colleague Armin Morgan. Well, no, not anymore, after I kept making my point that was correct and they had no responses. So he says, I've watched your videos, your website, and all your results once again, and he's never watched it ever, I'm sure. That's my opinion, because if he did, think about if he did, and he came to that result after watching about DNA and CAT scans and anatomists and specimens and blood pouring out of these things and the anatomy. Here he goes. Unfortunately, it remains my view that these are not fossils but rocks that are similar in appearance to various anatomical models. And then he goes on about the DNA can be found anywhere. Well, he obviously has no interest whatsoever. And then he says, go find a geologist. One strategy is to find a geologist. Department of Geology and Geophysics, Derek Briggs. What is this? What's this all about? So then I said back, Professor Briggs, I believe I was disconnected when you hung up on me when I tried to reach you by phone a while back. I have not been able to reach you by email either. I have also not heard from Armin anymore, or anyone else I tried at Yale. And this goes on, I think it was years by this time. I believe you are aware of my claims of human giants and discovered 20 miles from Yale, right down the street. Armin Morgan has stated you feel I possess only rocks that never were alive and not fossils. I have sent DNA tests and videos providing they are fossils. Why am I ignored? This is not clear to me. This is what I said to him. My question is, are you willing to examine my fossils? I believe it is your duty to investigate, but I could be wrong. I would like a long, deserved response, which he has never given me, as I have been trying to get a response for several years. And I don't think I got a response. And anyway, I sent back some saying, thanks for your opinion. I thought I was in the geology department. Anyway, they don't care about this at all. And now he's claiming that he discovered it. So he's totally discredited, in my opinion. All right, they shuffled me off to Armand Morgan, a nice guy, but just a middleman, strictly there for keep people away from where they keep the professors. This is on 3 of 15, and I tried to be nice and tell them all the information and all this business and who I've been working with up in Canada, and so, and then I went, sorry to bother you again, you know, and this was my paper on fascia-facilitated fossilization. Here it is right here. This I sent to him. This is back on 12/24/14. I did this. Fascia with its keratins and collagens is extremely resilient fibrous fabric that protects, coats, and separates bones, tendons, muscles, ligaments, organs, and every component of living tissue. It goes on and on and on. You know, I don't get crazy with all this stuff, but I showed him all the pictures and all of the information and everything. and totally refused to respond. I mean, how do you react to this? I need help. I didn't go to him for anything special. I just wanted him to help. And here's the paper. Here's all the references. I mean, I thought that was pretty good. And that's fascia-facilitated fossilization, and that's what creates these mud fossils. Here I am back with Armin again. Thank you for discussing and your respectful attitude. I thought he was being nice. He was just trying to keep me away. I hope I have not offended you. I'm with my persistence. I understand nobody wants to argue with someone who is simply argumentative with no substance, but this is not my case. I simply want to resolve this one way or the other. And this went on and on and on and on. Okay, it's getting boring here. Hello, Armin. I did the test. The DNA is confirmed. Life was the origin, all of this stuff. I have the CAT scans. The CAT scans are very clear. I went on and on and on. Mud fossil process chemistry is done. Recreated in my shop, which I have. I created feldspar that they turn into. This is hard to ignore. It's impossible to ignore if they were really doing their job. But they're reading old books to the students and knowing this for years now, that I have presented this and forced this evidence on them, and they have rejected to even examine it and still continue to say that they're experts and they know what reality is based on their old opinions. No, I don't think that's correct. I think that reality should be based on things that are presented to them and examined by them. So I see that as a fiduciary failure, and I think that's a criminal offense. So that's just where I stand, but that's only my opinion. And obviously my opinion has no weight at all. This goes on and on and on. Anyway, I just don't like it. And Professor Briggs is, I feel that he's done things that are not right, that he's avoided the truth of what our whole system and life is about and our ancestry, and that's how I feel. All right, these are mud fossil bones, and they're found in Connecticut. And as you can see, they're bones, and fragments of bones. However, they are fossils, and I was told that there is no fossils in Connecticut, and that they didn't want to see them. And no matter what evidence I produced, Professor Briggs wouldn't look at it. And I said, well, it is what it is, and they would not allow it because, and the excuses I get was, I'm not an expert at anatomy. Well, then get one, because these are rocks. You're not an expert at rocks either. If you don't examine the things, you're just not an expert at anything. You're just a guy with an opinion, and that's what you are. So these are mud fossils. They're legitimate fossils, and you just dismissed it and walked away from it, and now you're claiming to have discovered them. I just can't understand how, what's going on here. That's what I'd like to have some kind of explanation. All right, in about 2011, or maybe a little earlier, but let's take 2011, I found that rocks had veins and arteries in them. Most of the rocks that I was finding, they're the veins, they're the black ones, and the white ones or the red usually are the arteries, and they all seem to have this. Now that one was actually it's been CAT scanned and DNA tested, and it's actually a giant human being fingertip, and I'll show you some more on that in a second. All right, these are mud fossil bones found in Connecticut, and they're articulated bones. They have the cartilage, and they have all of the places where bone foramens go in, and blood and nerves enter, and what happens is it's called a collagen type 1, and it's bone matrix material, which is a supportive material of your body. Houses all of this organic stuff, and in mud fossils it can't escape, because as hopefully you understand that they are plated, and they cannot escape really the contents, and they're under pressure, and they just they transition is what happens. Now the bone, as you can see, there's still a taste of bone left in here, but most of it has bonded with other different molecules which have squeaked through the literal shingles that are on top. They're what they call platy polar silicates. Platy mean they're little plates. They weld to each other literally from ionic attachments bonding, and they coat the surface just like you coat a cheap ring with gold when they do it, because in wet, watery environments there's a natural electricity. It just happens. Everything you see in front of you here was alive at one time. That's a rock which has the fascia on it, and that's the investing flap that tags bundles of fascia into the main fascia system. I studied this very carefully. It's sort of a new area, fascia as a system that is extremely important in the body and has been overlooked. Anyway, that's the material, and then this is the fleshy stuff, and it has all of the little fibers that are in there. They call them elastins. They're little black, squiggly little fibers, and that's what keeps things all tugged back together, and they, all this stuff. This is the tunica in the ancient days, and this lung was DNA tested, 100% human. You can just really see the edge of it here. Of course, you see that bone. Then all of these. This is literally blood. The iron is literally blood. The stuff that's coming. So that's the case. Anyway, this is what it is. What it is. Now I have to make a statement. They have names for all the rose quartz and basalt and limestone and igneous and metamorphic, and all I have to tell you is that virtually every rock that we have found originates from some form of life. That's all I can say. If somebody can show me rocks that are just rocks, I will have to assume they are lava. And lava has this particular characteristic. It's extremely tiny crystals of homogeneous basalts. All they are is minerals that have shot up through the earth that have now recrystallized as they cooled from a liquid state. Everybody knows this. Now, that means that you're going to have bubbles and this and that in there, but you're not going to have this kind of activity. This is not from volcanic basalts. This is what's called porphyritic limestone basalts. All right. This stuff right here has fibers and pencrysts and all kinds of things in there. Plagiocases, and you know, they have no clue about this, so they just lump it into basalts. It's not basalts at all. And what it is there's mud rock, and then there's limestone, and then there's the sedimentary stuff, which is the sandstone. I can explain all of those. The sandstone is the skin, 50 times more dense in the skin, silicon. It bonds with oxygen, O2, creates SiO2, which is sand. It erodes very easily because those things encapsulate and they separate along these fascial planes. Every cell has a fascia. So they break away. What you're left with underneath is the fleshy stuff, which is the mud rock. It's actually this fleshy stuff here. If it transitions in a certain way, it turns into more of the metals and so forth in there. And some things, see, this was in a more of a volcanic area, I believe. Same thing with that. I have all this stuff worked out, and I'll go deeper into this. But there's conditions of pH is extremely critical. How long they've been in the ground, how deep they were in the ground, if they were wet continuously, were they eroded before they were buried. A million different stories here. And were they in geothermal areas? Were they plowed up? Were they broken over? Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. So we're going to go over all that stuff. I started with Mudfossil University. I'm going to go over all this because this is the Earth is made out of this. This is not, the geology is not correct at all. Geology says these are rocks. They're not rocks. Those are body parts that have petrified. And the experiments and the research that I've done proves that, I have 3 DNA tests, 7 CAT scans, and the things I'm showing are representative of the rest of the Earth. I'm getting people from all over the Earth. Let me show you some other things that have been sent to me that are just fabulous. Hold on one second. By the way, this is the fascia that coats all of this stuff. And you see that little flap? That was the flap I showed you on that red piece of meat before. And these are the little fibers that are in it. Now that whole wrapping wraps all your organs, all your muscles, all your tendons, and they all tag. This is the tag that brings them into the system, because they all affect each other. And inside of here, it's fabulous. There's a video called Strolling Under the Skin. Absolutely amazing. You should look into it. All right, I'm going to show you some other stuff. Hold on. Now, you know that this stuff is found in wet conditions. That's what preserves it, because blood literally chelates. It's a process where there's little things that wrap around the blood cells to keep them protected. They're called ligands. I have a whole. I'm going to go through all the chemistry on this, because I have everything. I have spectral analysis. I have all the DNA and all that stuff. So, but let's just go over this visually, because nobody else is doing any of the stuff I'm doing. They're doing visually anyway. So maybe this will show you something that'll make you change your mind a little bit. This is Phil Harris. He's down in Mississippi, out by the Mississippi River, and he came up with all kinds of stuff in literally minutes. He went out, this is a heart. He just picked it up, hit it with a hammer, it fell apart, and that's the blood in there. Now, he also found a fertilized egg that was petrified and broke right in half, and you could see the embryo in it and all that stuff. Hold on a second. This is just phenomenal. This is a lung sent to me by Gary Evans over in, he's over in the British Isles somewhere, and this came off of a tidal mudflat. Now, the reason it was so well preserved is because the tidal mudflat has the same sort of pH chemistry as the body. It has the same sort of chemistry, really. Now, once this creature was dead, I mean, it's just amazing. That is the exact articulation of the center of a lung. And the black represents the blood coming in that's deoxygenated. It's called FeO2 blood with one oxygen missing. And it gets reoxygenated with the air coming down in here and all the little air sacs, and it turns red. That's FeO3 blood. It has 3 oxygens. Then it gets pumped back down through the heart, and we see the same sort of dissimilar chemistry in the heart. This is wrapped with this heavy fabric tunica. It was by the Greeks, they called it tunica. We call it pleura, fascia. It's the coating of the lung that separates it from everything else. That's why you're not a ball of gush. That's why these things here, they're separated from all this. And the reason mud fossils stay so well preserved is because when you're dead and you're still wet, these things think, oh, well, this guy's still wet, he must be alive. So that's what happens. It's just that these are almost inert. Literally nothing is going to destroy them if they stay wet. But what happens is they go looking in the dry areas, and of course they all dried out and broke apart and fell into pieces. Now I got to tell you a funny story. I'm watching where they're digging up a dinosaur bone, and they're digging and digging and digging. And I'm thinking to myself, it's the bones in the mud fossils are in the center and almost totally deteriorated, and usually completely deteriorated. There's no bones in the lungs, but just assume there was a bone in here. All this is flesh. What happens is they're digging in here to get to this bone, and they're removing the flesh. They're digging away. So look at all this clay and all this, these things, and they're going for the bone. They think the bone is the prize. Unbelievable. Anyway, let me show you another one. He's coming in just one right after. I can't keep up with it, and I haven't found this stuff. I haven't discovered any special thing. This has been known forever, and nobody's willing to allow it to be seen. When I sent a human head to be CAT scanned at University of Texas, I think it was, wherever it was, University of Texas, Austin, I think it was. This goes back years ago. And they were so arrogant and so nasty, they wouldn't even answer one question after they did the CAT scan, and claimed that it was just sandstone. Now listen to this, which it is sandstone. But I said, well, it is sandstone. I tried to explain, oh, you don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Well, and then the director of the lab says to me, you didn't discover any new science. We get these things all the time. There's nothing here. It's just rocks. And then they always end it with cheers, and she would not be heard from. And I was so adamant that I wanted to talk to her that I became kind of aggressive, and I ended up being called by the police, and I ended up being called by a lawyer to desist. And they like to see me deceased probably. But I mean, I'm not going to, why would I just walk away from this? I did 3 DNA tests, 7 CAT scans. I was the one who found all this stuff. Now Yale was so adamant against me, and Harvard, and I took a course at Johns Hopkins. My professor, Stephen Salzberg, in genomics, I tried to present this to him, and within 8 minutes of presenting it to him, he, very arrogant, nasty response that I didn't know what I was doing, and you could do this and that, and anything's possible, and blah, blah, blah. Well, and then he just refused to talk to me. But that was my professor. So it's not something that I'm just making up that these people don't want to know about this. And then also that same guy, that same Stephen Salzberg, was the one that shot down the original T-Rex blood stuff. He told me, he said, I told him, oh, it's bad science, and this is when we were getting along. As soon as I put my stuff to him, I'm gone. So that's the history, that's the way it works, and so I'm taking it to the streets. Just so you see, that's the anatomy of the lung. I get very deep into this. I know the chemistry, I know the anatomy. I had an anatomist, Gil Headley, world famous, teaches autopsies all around the world. Absolutely incredible insights into the structure of the body and the materials and the, what dulls the scalpels when he does it. Of course, is the connective tissue has the silicon in it. Which literally, the connective tissue is literally, it's a movable stone. It's CaCO3. It's the same thing they make limestone. It's limestone, but it's in your body. It's separated by fascia, which allows it to float around in a sort of suspended state, but it's still extremely structural. So that's the nature of the body. That structural stuff remains. The organic, gooey stuff, which we consider to be the blood and tissue and fleshy sort of stuff you can squish around in your fingers, that stuff, they call it sublimates. It vaporizes off. It just evaporates. But they call it sublimate. And sublimation means that as the more every element has a number of protons and neutrons and all that business. And the littlest ones go off for early. The oxygen, hydrogen and the helium, all that stuff. That boils off of, and it's called volatile, which means they go away. Organic, which means they're from some creature. Compounds, and they are, hydrocarbons, things like that. They boil away, and they turn into methanes and gases and biogases. And what you're left over is the metals and the minerals and so forth. And that's what turns into mud fossils. Now, those particular things become invaded by chemicals. And I'll show you some information about that. All right, well, by the way, that's just another shot of the lung showing the interplay between the blue, which in your body, the blood that's deoxygenated is blue, and the red blood is the oxygenated blood. When you're in the mud fossil range, the deoxygenated blood, the FeO2, is not blue anymore. It turns black, and it can turn like a shiny blue-black. It's very, very distinct. All right, now here, let me check this out. I just showed you about lungs. These inside of here, this is the remnants of a broken up lung. Now watch this. You see that? Hold on. That's the tubing that's in the lung. I showed you the bronchioli or whatever they call it, the tubes of the lung. That's what's in them, see it? And these are the little passageways. All right, see that? Now this is broken off of a lung. All right, so this stuff is real, and I'm getting it from everybody in the world. It's just the way it is. All right, see, this is the heart. And you could tell when you see this banding, this white banding, and then you're going to see white banding with little black like studs in it. And of course, if you look carefully, you can see that was an investment of a aorta or something. And then there was another one over here. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? They had tubing coming in and out of these things for your heart. Now, but the key to this is this banding, which those little black dots. And that's the kind of stone this guy sent a picture of. And I mean, I get so many hearts coming in from all over the world. Hearts and lungs preserve exquisitely well. And the reason they do is because of that factor I spoke of, is chelation, which means that the blood and they are dense with blood, becomes surrounded by, well, here, I'm going to show you the chemistry. All right, this is a little, you know, there's a little chemistry here, but there's nothing that you can't figure out very easily. It's very simple. And what it speaks about here is that the colors, just like you mix paint, are from different molecules that are, you know, like titanium, vanadium, chromium. These are metals primarily that create colors. See, they're transition metal ion colors. Now, what's a transition metal? Well, normally you take a molecule, an atom, or even a molecule, and all of the lower orbitals of electrons should fill up down there, and that gives it, you know, is a stable sort of state. And the better the outer layer of those shells are filled, it doesn't react as much because it's fully filled up with stuff, so it doesn't need any more electrons, or it doesn't want to share any electrons, or it doesn't want to give any up, so it's pretty stable. But when you have this +3, -2, you know, all of these different states, they either want electrons or they want to give away electrons. Now, the cool thing about transition metals is not only do they want to give them away or take them away, they have a unique condition here, and that is that they don't have, see, they don't fill the outer layers completely. They fill most of the outer layer, and then they leave a couple spaces on the inner layer, and they react in strange ways. And I believe that inner layer can be forced to the outer layer and give a potential to chemistry, as they did with monoatomic gold in the alchemy. But it requires continuous heating, driving those lower layers into excited states until they eventually stay there, and they become literally radioactive, only they're electrons. They're not protons and neutrons. Anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But anyway, the point I'm giving you, I shouldn't have gone off that far on that. The point I'm giving you is that the colors here that I'm going to be showing you, that's why they turn into these colors. So anyway, that's it. All right, this tells the story of mud fossils. Now, I'm saying that mud fossils are the complete creature's body parts. Most of them are broken up from what I think is glacial tilling or slurping around in the Great Flood, whatever it is. But most of these are petrified creatures that are on the surface of the earth, so they can't be in that long ago. You just pick them up off the ground. And they consist of all of the chemistry of the human body. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what I'm saying. First of all, let's take sedimentary rock. Sedimentary means that it erodes and it washes down and it creates layers of mud and dirt and so forth like that. And sand, primarily sandstone, is primarily silicon, silicon dioxide, SiO2. You see the red up here and the red, that means it's heavy with silicon. Mudstone and limestone don't have quite as much silicon. Limestone has a little, and I'll explain that in a second. But sandstone, why is sandstone so heavy with silicon? Well, you know, why would that be? Well, I can tell you why. The reason that sandstone is silicon dioxide is because silicon is the fabric of the skin. It is the grippy, tough stuff that's in your skin. And that, and hold on a second, I will show you a piece of that as we speak. Now, it's the tough stuff here. If you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see the little, this is of course a petrified, and this actually was, the finger that this came from was DNA tested human. I'm talking giants, guys. And this actually is the fingerprints. That sweeps up the side of his finger, just like here. And that's where the fingerprints start. And you can see them in the microscope. It has all the same articulation. And if you get it in the right light, you can see they have little pockets and pores and all that. But anyway, this is the silicon is in there, and that erodes, and that is tough. Tough. So that's what happened. The silicon, and you can see it's eroding. You see how eroded that outer layer is? Not the inside. The inside isn't eroded yet at all. That was on top of what is a giant fingertip. And the black stuff in there is the actual flesh. And that is the thickness of the skin. That's just what it is. That would be the same skin that I have right there in the very crease of that little spot in my finger. That's that right there. So that's what it is, and it's just, and if it wasn't giants, they would maybe look at it. But anyway, let's go back to the chemistry. So that we know about the silicon, and it's in your skin, and it's 50 times more dense in your skin than the rest of your body. There is more silicon also in the limestone part of your body, which is CaCO3. It's calcium and bone minerals and phosphates and all that business. And it's in your body. It's calcium CaCO3. And in sea creatures, it's calcium CaCO3 in their shells. However, in us, the limestone is also impregnated with a lot of blood and bloody little minerals. That's why in your next area, almost everything's the same. You see it? They're almost all the same, except silicon is way high up here in the sandstone. Almost no silicon here because it's eroded off, and now you're down to mudstone. Mudstone is the flesh. And I'll show you a piece of that right now. And this, hold on. Alright, this is what's called mudstone. The silicon is pretty much eroded away. We're down to where they call it the areolar tissue is below. This was DNA tested. Well, this one wasn't DNA tested. The one that was right next to it, that's part of the same hand, was. This one was a better condition, so we had a CAT scan. Absolutely unbelievable. Inside is the apical tuft. It's all of this stuff. But the silicon is gone away, and this is the mudstone. Now, what is mudstone? Mudstone is the same stuff, chemistry, that's in your body. It's got, in mudstone, here's what you got in here. You've got, you see this green up here, calcium, a lot of calcium. A lot of calcium in limestone. That's in your body. But very little calcium in the sandstone because that's the silicon. That's what eroded off of your skin. Now, but you see the other chemistries are correct. So do you understand what's happening? The sand is coming off of the main flesh of the body. What's left is the mudstone, which is the flesh of the body, which is the muddy flesh of the body, the gooey red flesh of the body, the organic flesh of the body. Then you come down to the structural part of the body is the limestone. And this limestone's limestone. Now, in our bodies, though, it's in these tendinous little bundles and strappy little fibrils, they call them. I'll show you that in a second. And they slide amongst each other because they're separated by the fascia. And when the giants petrify, and you see them in Giant's Causeway and all that, and you see all these hexagonal basalt columns, those aren't from volcanoes at all, not even close. Those are fibers of giant creatures. They're fibrils, and I'm going to show you what they look like in a second. And there is no question about it. And the chemistry is correct. The chemistry's right. They're porphyritic limestone basalts. And I'll show you what those look like and how and what I have here. They're on my lungs, they're everywhere. So the chemistry is undeniable. It's just undeniable. If you have any kind of chemical background, you can't even, and nobody ever has raised not one single factual dispute about the evidence that I presented. Yale won't look at it. Professor Briggs refuses to look at it. And it's presented over and over and over, and he just refused to look at it just several months back. And said, call somebody else. You know, and that's just the way it works. And that was the only reason I got that response was because I literally flooded the administrators with a request to have this thing examined, and then I get this response from him. Well, you know, just the way it works over there. They ignore what they, and then he comes out and he's trying to name the process. This is Professor Biggs. Here are these words: mud fossils. It has nothing to do with Eric Hardy or all these names you guys come up with. Plus, you know, you can come to my university. It's going to be called Mudfossils University. Well, it is called. It's already started. Mudfossils University, and it's on YouTube. It's free to anyone. Because everything you teach is wrong. This is not a rock. Mudstone is not rocks. Limestone is not rocks. Sandstone is not rock. All of that stuff is creature-oriented. And now it's time to live up to what you say you are all about is science. Turning your eyes to the ground or in the woods, or I don't know where your eyes are. You have eyes, to be honest with you, because they never touch any of my stuff. So all I can say is it's time to look and not just espouse that you're an expert and you don't need to look, because that's not right. And as far as the name you come up with for my mud fossils, that's not going to work either. So give me a call. We'll talk it over. Whoops. See, that's Giant's Causeway. These are the tendon fibrils that I'm talking about, and that's porphyritic limestone basalt. It has nothing to do with volcanism whatsoever. Giant's Causeway is exactly what you see there. This is tendinous material. It is identical in chemistry. It's limestone, CaCO3 and other minerals that create the, it's separated by the fascia, which is a little iron, it has some iron in it because of the blood. It's the synovial sheathing that's around here and the fascia that separates it. And they come down to the tiniest little fibrils. And they are enormous in these creatures because these creatures were enormous. And that is the issue with Yale and Professor Briggs and everybody else. They can't leave their opinions that this can't be true. Not fact, not based on any evidence that they have, and against every bit of evidence that I present. So it's 100% opinion. Now, students are not served by opinions. They're served by facts and truth. And that is being obstructed, not facilitated, obstructed by people like Professor Briggs and Yale and all of the rest of them, and Johns Hopkins and Stephen Salzberg. These are not people that are scientifically oriented. It's not fair to students to have to pay the kind of money they pay and then realize that they have been, I mean, to my way of thinking, I don't know, this is my opinion, but I think they've been deceived. I would go to one of these schools. Thank God I didn't pay them, because I don't think I could send that student payment off every month knowing this fact, that these people have never really cared to investigate that the things that they're saying are not true when presented with factual truths that they reject. And not only, and just reject out of hand without looking at it because they have an opinion. Now that's not fair to the students, because now they have to relearn. I'm going to teach them for free at Mudfossil University, and you can just go to YouTube and start looking. There's about 20 different, and I have them for little kids too, because we want to get the little tiny kids to understand reality and not be swayed by, literally bullies. That won't allow this because they have, here's, I'm going to go right in to tell you the truth, what it's all about. Every single one that ever did mention anything to me, the first things they said when I told them that they were humans and they were a little on the big size, were you creationist? Exactly every single one. That is the credo of academia, is to be anti-religious, literally, is that, people that are God-related are delusional. They're worshiping something that isn't real. And my evidence shows that they're just exactly wrong, that everything that was said back then was true. Not just by the Bible, but by everything. The Bible doesn't really even hardly go into these giants. It just says, there were some giants around and they were in the earth, and then we went on from there. So it's just a denial of reality. Now, what is that? That clinically, when you know that you have a belief, and then you're presented with DNA evidence and CAT scans and physical evidence and blood and anatomist testimony and lab analysis and material analysis and chemistry, and then you say, I still am going to believe what I believe. That's called delusion. That is delusional. That's not just wrong. That's delusion. And if they're perfectly happy, deluded behind the ivy walls, that's fine. But they should not present that, and with the dominance they have to the students, that they literally force them to give them exorbitant amount of money and really license their life to them. They force a dominated opinion on them, as we know now, that it's not factually based. They tell them to, literally be quiet and don't make any waves and don't protest this information. This is the truth. We've investigated. We know it's the truth, and it is the truth. And if you don't believe it, well, then you're in trouble, and we're not going to pass you for not believing it, and we're going to keep your money, and you're not going to succeed in life because you didn't say the things that we told you to say. Now, and then, so they're in such a dominant position that, it's just not fair to the students, really not. And when you look at it, you say, well, what is a cult? That's my definition of a cult. Give me all your money, do as we say. If you make any waves, we're going to ruin your life and destroy you. And don't speak up. And if you leave our tent, don't make any waves, because we'll find a way to hurt you. And they did to Velikovsky, they did to Tesla, they did to everybody that's come forth with truth and reality and something that exceeds arrogance. We need to get ahead of these people somehow, and I did. We're going to have Mudfossil University spread the word around, because you don't need that kind of education anymore. What you need is the kind of education that focuses you on the job that you're going to do. That's all. I'll show you what the reality of this is. Nothing that you've heard is right, because the rocks on Earth are not the rocks that you were told they are, and the rocks in space are not the rocks they told you are. Comet has nothing to do with what they told you, and I'm going to show you the evidence on that now. All right, Comet 67P, they had the Rosetta mission. They just crashed the lander up there into a vascular entry, because Comet 67P is a literal piece of meat in space. It's a tendon enthesis. It's a gigantic, gigantic, gigantic tendon enthesis. That's all I can say. And I have a video to show it. Now, and they did, here's the two biggest words in science. Totally unexpected. Rosetta's, everybody says, oh, comet, they're all ice ball and this and that. No, it has nothing to do with ice. Rosetta's comet has no ice and is darker than coal. Surprising discovery. Of course it's surprising. You don't pay attention to anything. Made after probe sends back its first report. And then it starts to tell them about all of the stuff that's on it. It's 100% organic. 100% organic. Hold on a second. There we go again. Totally unexpected. Complex organic molecules discovered on Rosetta's comet. Well, obviously, because it's a piece of meat. With only a few days left before it's scheduled to crash land on the surface, which they did, Rosetta spacecraft still yielding amazing discoveries, and I'm not just talking about lost comet landers. Scientists now report that Rosetta detected complex organic molecules in the dust surrounding its comet. This strengthens the argument that the building blocks of life itself may have come from icy space rocks. Well, there's no ice out there. It's unbelievable. Anyway, they're lost. It's a piece of meat. Okay, this is from Helix Biolab, and he did the extraction and the of the DNA, and then it was sequenced at Eaton Biolabs in New Jersey. Now, this is the only guy in the country that would do this because he knew it was giants, and they already discredit him. He's a true scientist, and they try to discredit him in every possible way. He will do the DNA on Bigfoot stuff and anything that you bring to him that is considered to be DNA testable, and he does an extremely good job. And I have a video with a discussion about it. Very, very good job. Now, and he details every little bit of this, and they're positive for these things, and the negative controls were negative, and and he sequenced a very, very detailed, outstanding scientist. This is where he used all these different primers that were in some certain papers, and this was the sequences that came out, and that's what it is. And he did a fabulous job. Now, again, nobody would allow this. I contacted a bunch of places to have it done, and they said, "Well, okay." And then as soon as I said that, these are supposedly giant human beings, that was it, done. Never heard back from them. And they don't even just say, "Well, I'm sorry, we don't do that anymore." Once you get them cornered, they just walk away and never respond again at all. And that is systemic in institutions now, and in all businesses that, years ago you confronted what you had to confront. Here's Eaton Biosciences. They're the ones that did the sequencing and the lab report. And they came out with 100% human mitochondrial DNA, 2 regions, a D loop and cytosome B or something. I can't remember the names offhand, but it's all in the report. And I have all the stuff online. Now, also, this was, let me see, Jesse Garant. Did the CAT scans, and I'm talking about, this place was unbelievable, and they did them for us at no charge because they know what we have. They scan industrial equipment and racing engines and they can see through these things, and they come out with 3D reports and colors and graphic, all kinds of stuff, absolutely for us, and the nicest people you could ever work with. They listen, they understand, and they went right to work and did fabulous. And they did 7 CAT scans. And these things normally, the equipment they're working with, and the technicians that run these things, and the knowledge base that they have is just phenomenal. So obviously, you have to pay for that. And they did this in the interest of science because they understood what was done. These are scientists. This is what we're missing in academia. If they don't have the answers, they don't want to discuss it. If they have the answers, they're all proud to make up big words and intimidate everybody how smart they are and make it all confusing. These are true scientists. They want this stuff understood. And I thank them deeply for doing this. And I thank Tom at Helix Biolabs for his involvement as well. They both put themselves on the line. And I thank you both. Alright, this is on YouTube, and it's called Huge Giants CAT Scan at 8:45, 45 seconds. And 3 DNA tests are 100% human mitochondrial DNA on mudfossils.com. And here, what I'm showing here is a lung. That was DNA tested, 100% human. That's a normal size. Now let me show you what the other things that we had tested. Well, here's blood that came out of a lung that we had, and blood comes out of these rocks very often. And actually, they found blood and DNA. I think, I don't know. They don't know about the DNA, but they found blood in virtually all of the fossils they're looking at now. Soft tissue stuff. It's all left over, connective tissue. Now, this was from the CAT scans, and this is, you can actually see the nail bed right here. And you could see inside, you see the bone and the structure of the bone. And if you held your left thumb up and looked at that in the exact same plane, you see the exact same architecture. There's no difference. Now, and it's all inside there anyway. You see all the blood vessels and all the vascular works. There's no question once you get into the CAT scans. And I'm showing, these are apical tufts. We got those in many. And then it goes into the, you see, I don't know if you can see this or not. You probably can't see it. But on the, around the edges here, these little dots, those are all where the blood comes up through your hand. And as you scan up through it, you can see all this stuff. But anyway, I have a lot of detail on that. You have to go looking at. But that's the scans, and we had a lot of those. This is the hand itself, actually. And that is the palm of the hand. Hold on a second. And this was found in a fairly small hole. And there is about 30 or 40 feet away, there is some very large bones that go with this that are just sticking out of the ground. I don't have the ability to excavate them out of there, but they're there. Now, that is this, a hand in this plane, and I'll show you right now. And we have a couple of fingers, and we have the knuckle, and we have the palm, and all the other stuff's out there. I hurt my back. I mean, well, my back is always bad, but I hurt my. Hold on, I can't get this thing. I hurt my shoulder. Anyway, this fleshy part here that you feel as the padding of your hand is literally some kind of a different tissue, and it comes up as a different tissue here, which is a ligamentaceous type of tissue. I don't know how to explain it, but it's more fibrous. Now, this right here, as you can see, extends out, and you have one of those on your hand too. If you fold your hand back, you see it? I don't know if you can see that. Probably can't. But it's right in this area here. All right, and of course your thumb is over here, and the thumb is out there, and that's what we got is a thumb, and then we have a finger from up in this area, and then we have a knuckle, and of course this. And this was several years ago, and it was DNA tested, 100% human DNA. And like I said, there's a bunch of bones out there, but this is nothing unique here. This is not something that is just here. This is everywhere. And I'm going to show you this here. Here's one. Here's one over here that shows you that there truly is giants in the earth. If that's not a giant in the earth, all I can tell you is lens crafters. Now, I'm going to wrap this up with a video I did a while back about the nasty, vicious attacks on Immanuel Velikovsky when he presented legitimate, and I believe it's 100% proven, factual evidence he was attacked by academia and forced to have his book removed from the bestsellers list. They forced him to take it off the bookshelves because academia went against the publishers. Now listen to this. It's about Velikovsky and his theory, which was rejected violently. And this goes back to 1972. This is not recent, and it's still going on. Now listen to this. This is what we're up against. I need help. I did this video a while ago.
Scientific and scholarly community brought to bear is that it succeeded.
They destroyed them.
The book, The Worlds in Collision, then merely the first of the books, had been on the top of the bestseller list for something like 11 weeks. And nonetheless, the publisher was so mortally wounded is the only word by the turning away of salesmen from the doors of professors' studies and all of the implications that went with this, that the book was transferred to another publisher which was willing to take it over, which...
The only reason they took it over was they did not have a textbook
publishing.
division.
Not only was the scientific press carping at him, and in a way that was violent, not in terms of an orderly
This guy is
discussion
a
that
genius.
this idea is yet to be tested and it takes more time and etc., but saying this idea is crazy and any man who has such an idea is mad, insane, that kind of thing. But the establishment through which men who think that way make a living, the academic establishment, was saying to this man, you know, you're not safe. Now, in the case of most of the young, being themselves, unhappily, is not...
Dr. Birnbaum, president of Staten Island Community College.
In the case of Velikovsky, there is something hard, and the cost of being himself has been very, very great. That is a condition to which I think the young comfortably can be exposed. And if I had my way, every young undergraduate student in my college, every one, whether he's in the humanities or the hard sciences, would be required to examine the Velikovsky case. First, because the subject matter of what the man is standing for is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Secondly, because the subject matter is truly interdisciplinary. It's stretching. But third, because the human embodiment of the expression of the ideas, in a way, is symbolic of the problem the young think they are facing in this kind of a society, and which, in my opinion, they in fact are facing.
Intransigence.
Me.
He's right, because he's being destroyed himself.
The condition is the extreme professionalization and rigidification of institutions through which thought is supposed to occur.
Holy
Extreme to the point where it begins to contaminate the fluidity and looseness of freedom to think. Fluidity and looseness of ideas, of having ideas, and the freedom to think. And Velikovsky really wasn't taken on by the establishment simply because of what he was saying. He was also taken on by the establishment, in my opinion, because of his audacity in having such thoughts.
Just exactly like me.
And this has got to stop.
You know, we got to stop this, really. This is crazy. Because, you know, Stephen Hawking, listen to this. Professor Stephen Hawking puts out some big thing about science communicators. We're going to have a big science award for average people to communicate about their science. I flooded them with stuff. I said, why don't you look at this? Never, not one single comment back ever. I don't know whatever happened there, because that goes back years now, or well, at least a year or so. But anyway, and I posted a ton of times on his Facebook page, and he's never responded whatsoever, and what he is saying is wrong. Virtually every word out of his mouth has been incorrect, because they don't understand that these things in space are creature body parts. Even the asteroids and the here, this is right here. Look, that right there is Comet 67P, and it's a literal piece of meat in space. And they know this now from Rosetta. They've come up with all the chemistry. They understand it, but they won't admit it. So that's just the way it works.